The two big developments coming out of Pakistan. One, they have banned New Year celebrations. It is now illegal in Pakistan to celebrate 2024. They say the reason is because of the ongoing war in Gaza, out of sympathy to the Palestinian cause. They don't want Pakistanis to be having any Jasht or New Year. The reality is that the Pakistani people have scarcely little to celebrate. And that's the second news point, because the World Bank has just come out with a report clearly indicting Pakistan for having a failed economic model. Now, when we say failed economic model, what do we really mean? Let me read out a few company names of how Pakistan is run. Fauji Cereals, Fauji Seed Multiplication Farm, Fauji Cement Company, Fauji Fertilizer Limited, Fauji Kabirwala Power Company, Fauji Power Company Limited, Fauji Akbar Porsche Marine Terminal Limited, Fauji Oil Terminal and Distribution Company Limited, Fauji Infra West Foods Limited, Fauji Foods Limited, Fauji Fresh and Fees Limited, Fauji Meat Limited, Askari Bank, Askari Cement. I mean, from real estate to oil and gas to mineral mining to chemicals to fertilizers to shopping malls to housing complexes to wind energy to universities, all of financial services, banks, all of these are run under something called the Fauji group of companies. Some would say 10%, others would say 20% of Pakistan's private sector GDP is this. The remaining, of course, in the public sector, which also, you'll be shocked, is run by the Pakistani army. So when we say failed economic model, what do we mean? As we speak, the foreign exchange reserves of Pakistan at the $8 or $9 billion that they are. Put this into context. You know what the foreign exchange reserves in India are? $600 billion. Okay. The foreign exchange reserves of India are almost twice Pakistan's annual GDP. Just think about it for a second. The GDP of Bangladesh is now 10% bigger than Pakistan's. You know about the rampant inflation, you know about the people fighting for food. It has become, we were here to debate a few days ago, that people can't even afford to buy normal cars. There are more cars sold in Delhi in a month than all of the country of Pakistan. In fact, multiple time cars sold in Delhi a month than they what in the entire country. We've had these conversations. Now the question is, should we care? Don't celebrate New Year's because you've got nothing to celebrate, and all the best with your failed economic model. Cheers. Let's open up this conversation. Ambassador Basmati Mukherjee joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Sharad Kohli is with us. Patikrit is with us. And Joyita Basu, editor of the Sunday Guardian, in the studio with me. Ambassador Mukherjee, now when we are talking about a failed economic model, I've tried to relate that the economy of Pakistan is run by whom? So who are we actually blaming here, ma'am?
Well, it's been very clear to Pakistan watchers and observers, including you, Rishabh, and all of us sitting here today, that Pakistan is run by the deep state and by the Pakistani army, which is the reason why it is in such dire economic straits, and which is why again and again the World Bank has tried to put in the necessary measures required to focus development on the people of Pakistan, rather than, as the company director of the World Bank said, and I read the report, said that the Pakistani development is only helping the super elite, the super rich to get richer, while completely neglecting people-centric development. In other words, although it's technically a democracy, Rishabh, you cannot really call it a democracy, because a democracy is supposed to push development for the people, by the people, of the people, and that has not happened in Pakistan at all. The other issue is that it's got into such heavy debt particularly to China, and it's in a situation where those who used to generously dole it out earlier no longer wish to do so, that now they are completely dependent on the US on one hand and on China on the other. The World Bank report also points out that considering that Pakistan is also going through the various difficulties caused by climate change, it is in no position to combat, to rise to those challenges, and nor has it even tried to bring in agrarian reform, land reform, etc., required to move the economy around. So all in all, it really is nothing.
So the question, ma'am, is at what point of time does it become a hopeless case because the people who need to bring about the reforms are not the interested party in bringing those reforms, because bringing about the reforms directly damages their interests, and their interests run everything in Pakistan. 10-20% of the economy? No, 100% of the economy is being run by people who should actually be professional soldiers. But one thing they're bad at is being soldiers, because they've lost every war they fought. So at what point of time does it become hopeless? I mean, is the World Bank report just a lament?
No, it's not a lament, Rishabh. The World Bank report is an indication that the World Bank is giving notice to Pakistan that Pakistan is not carrying out the necessary reforms which it was supposed to do through a very careful negotiation, which failed many times and finally I think was brokered by the Americans in Washington. So I think it's a kind of a report card which is not good news. And moreover, the people who benefit the most are the super elite, which means that Pakistan is either looking at complete failure of the state or is looking at the beginnings of a people-centric reform.
But certain establishments, their uniqueness in being able to perpetuate themselves while looting their own people is amazing. I mean, look at North Korea, okay? In Iraq, and Ambassador Mukherjee will be aware of this, so you have a regime, there are sanctions against the regime. Unlike Pakistan, at least they had oil which was valuable to the world. So the Iraqis were told, don't worry, we'll give you food in exchange for oil. So you give us the oil, we'll give you coupons with which you can purchase food. And then there was a multi-billion dollar oil for food scandal that happened. So, what can you do? Let me get Dr. Kohli into this. Dr. Kohli, I was watching a Pakistani YouTuber recently, because Pakistani school children are taught that they won all the wars. They won 65, they won 71. Bangladesh was formed because they won the war. So they are taught this. And they're discussing that we have an army that has taught us this when we actually lost the wars, because the people are too busy running hotels and real estate projects rather than fighting wars. So what is going on when the World Bank says there's a failed economic model, sir?
Well, Rishabh, the same children who are taught in their schools that they won all the possible wars that Pakistan fought are the very children when they grow up and they face the realities of life, or shall I say the realities of the economy, when they can't go and buy groceries from the shop, when they can't find a job, when they can't start a business because there are threats coming from the army, contacts. They come to know that what we were taught was a load of rubbish, and the reality of Pakistan is something else. And the same people, they go on camera to comment that India हमसे बहुत आगे है. India ने जो किया हम वो सपने में भी नहीं कर पाएंगे. And so you get those statements from people. We keep seeing this in the media on your channels and other channels. That is one. Now, as far as World Bank is concerned, Rishabh, taking cue from what you said, I think we need to set up an investigation committee at the international level, because this is a lament, as you rightly said. This is a lament because for the simple reason that Pakistan was never in good shape, first of all. So for World Bank to make a comment like this at this point, I think is waking up from, was it sleeping before? I'm sorry, I don't mean any disrespect to World Bank or any other international agency. But the magic is, and what needs to be investigated is, that despite Pakistan's economic parameters being pathetic, how is it possible that Pakistan is able to garner those bailout after bailouts from IMF and other agencies. That's a scam. If you ask me, this is a scam because as a lender, now Rishabh, if you are a lender, why would you lend to a bankrupt country? Would you, if somebody asks money from you and you know it's never going to come back, would you still be prepared to lend? That's my first question. My second question is, the interest keeps piling up and a part of this loan is going to be repaid by taking another loan. Would I still be interested in giving loan? So why and how these bailouts happen is the first scam which I feel at an international level.
All right.
Which needs
So Dr. Kohli, before I can join in, when we are saying the World Bank feels that Pakistan has a failed economic model, and the large preponderant part of the economic model is run by the Fauji group of companies, so who should squarely take the blame? Dr. Kohli.
The blame is to be taken by the Hukmran of Pakistan, first of all. That's my, so, when you said Fauji so and so, it is Fauji Recipe for Disaster Limited. That is the whole, I think it is the army which is responsible for the plight in which the economy is of today. Rishabh, I hate to be technical. I come from a world of economics. I hate to be technical, but sometimes I feel like being technical. There are 4 engines of an economy. First engine is government spending. Now, you know what government spending in Pakistan is. Only on breeding terrorism. That's what government spending definition is in Pakistan. The first engine. The second engine, private investment. I don't think any industrialist would like to invest in Pakistan when they know what is going to be the plight of their business in the moment they start their business. The third engine is private consumption. Private consumption is when people go and buy and your economy runs. India's economy is 55 to 60% dependent on consumption. Now, Pakistan economy, people crave to buy groceries. Where is the consumption? And fourth and the last engine, Rishabh, is exports. Now, can somebody tell me, apart from few food grains and little bit of textiles, what has Pakistan got to export? So when all the 4 engines of economy, here's the point, Rishabh, all 4 engines of economy have failed. How can IMF bail out?
So there are two points of question here. One is that, if you come out with a report that the economic model is failed, with the World Bank, the IMF give further loans to Pakistan, yes or no? And what is failing that economic model? Joyita Basu, one of my uncles, he's a retired Lieutenant General. He was GOC-NC Western Command. He is now retired, lives in a 2-bedroom flat in West Delhi. In the Pakistani army, these guys would be running mineral projects and housing projects and oil and gas and meateries and food corporations. It's a laughable joke what is happening. So who is to blame for this flawed economic model? Who created this model?
Rishabh, I think this is a classic case of, the military having a country and not about the country having a military. This is what happens when there is a country that the Fauji of Pakistan, they basically drain the country of all resources. They are also the most corrupt, if I can use the word, institution, because you see say for example the Chinese coming in, some private company wanting to have some business, everybody has to bribe the generals, and not just bribe. When it coming to bribe, we are talking about having land in the UK, having land in the US, having property there. So it is said that collectively, in fact we in the Sunday Guardian had done a story sometime back, it said that collectively the generals, serving and the retired, they control something around 20 to 25 billion dollars worth of assets and wealth. So you can imagine the kind of disparity. You go to YouTube, in fact, as it happened just yesterday, I was watching a video where they are showing a township kind of in Islamabad, and these are they look just like any plush township, city developed in somewhere in the Middle East, or maybe even the West in the US and all. So, some people, there is a huge concentration.
No, but why in Pakistan? So, I'll give you an example. Nawaz Sharif has been to exile, I don't know how many times. Every few years he's in exile. Where does he live in exile? In London. Now, I want you to think about, is London a cheap city to live in? No, it isn't. Joyita and I would struggle to live in London. It's very, very expensive to live. Don't even try to fill a tank of petrol in London if you can afford a car. So how does Nawaz Sharif afford to live there? Who pays the bills? Do you know how many properties Imran Khan owned in England? Where all he sold them before he returned to Pakistan? So in this problem, Joyita, what does the ordinary Pakistani do? When he's told by the World Bank your system has failed, he knows the system has failed, what does he do about it?
Well, he starves, he begs, he fights for food. I mean, that is what is happening right now. You know, when you, even for that matter, that upper middle class Pakistanis, they say that, you know, there is not much of a trouble. They are living in some sort of a cocoon. What is happening in Pakistan on the ground is sad. If you remember, a few years ago, even if we convert it into Indian rupees, Pakistanis, I mean, they were buying flour, 1 kilo of flour for, in terms of Indian rupees, 250 rupees a kilo. And so we have been seeing food riots, okay, on the streets. I mean, people, so that is what is happening. The gulf is so big.
Everything you can think that could go wrong has gone wrong.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Patikrit, now we know, you and I know this, it's not big news that Pakistan's economy is in trouble and they're not doing very well. We know this. Okay. So the question is, how is it that we should care about it? What's in our interest here? Why should we care?
Rishabh, to your first comment about the Pakistanis not celebrating the New Year, right now the casualties in Gaza Strip of the Palestinians is around 20,000. It's still less than the 25,000 Palestinians killed in Jordan by Brigadier Ziaul Haq and his whole brigade sent by Pakistan. So I don't know which one the Pakistanis should lament more, killing more number of Palestinians than the Israelis right now. Secondly, let me tell you, as Dr. Kohli rightly mentioned, Pakistan was always an unviable economy. It was kept alive by the West. And if you ask me, there will be another 100 times these Bretton Woods financial institutions will bail them out every time their main sponsors tell them that bail this organized country out because it has a nuisance value. The West doesn't want a democratic and accountable country. They want concentration of power in the hands of the Fauji and certain extremely corrupt, incompetent political leaders. That's how it works. And let me tell you, why should we be concerned? I can guarantee this. I think we all are hopeful about the return of Prime Minister Modi in 2024. A fiercely independent India, a strong economy. It's a huge cause of discomfort for the West. You would see Pakistan will be armed and financed even more to contain India. This is why we should worry. It is not about what's happening to the average Pakistani, because when the financial institutions start failing, they will be told that this financial
history teaches us that economic collapses do happen. The Soviet Union never really lost a war. You can't really say that they lost in Vietnam, that they lost in Korea, they lost in Cuba. Some calamity befell them, other than the fact that they had an economic collapse. They just collapsed from within. So collapses do happen. Now, yes, Pakistan can get propped up. Maybe Saudi Aramco is sponsoring IPL and World Cup in India. I don't know how much they're interested in sponsoring events in Pakistan. So at collapses can happen. So the question is, does it matter to us if Pakistan collapses, does not collapse, continues? Why do we care?
I think, first of all, I don't want to deviate, but the Russians within Soviet Union decided that they will not subsidize the rest of the satellites anymore. And it was a very conscious decision of the perestroika that they wanted that disintegration of Soviet Union to happen. It was a good decision. For the Pakistanis, we should be concerned. See, first of all, an economic collapse of Pakistan, I personally believe it's good, because the more they remain in chaos within each other, amongst each other, it's better for us. The day they will be better off, they will be targeting India even more. But let us understand that a chaotic Pakistan is exactly what the West needs to finance and a pliable government that now it's your task to contain this India, which is becoming the next China in terms of being extremely independent and out of control. That, to my mind, is a concern for us. And let me tell you, Rishabh, why I'm saying this. Look at the messaging when Dr. Jaishankar told in Russia that this is a relationship which is time tested and endured, difficult times. The messaging is for the West, that for the West, the relationship with India has always been hyphenated. And Pakistan will not collapse beyond a point because the West will continue to.
I've understood your point. I agree with large parts of it. There is probably a more dehyphenation today than ever before. But I agree with your premise that somebody will keep them floating for some reason or the other. Those reasons are diminishing. The reason to be in Afghanistan is diminished. The reason of interest for the Saudis to think that the Pakistanis are going to send troops to help us is diminishing. The reason of the Islamic bomb is diminishing. But Ambassador Mukherjee, so now, is there anybody within or without Pakistan who actually wants to take it upon themselves to fix the failed model?
Such a person does not exist. I would first like to say that the West embarked upon dehyphenation quite some time ago, number one. Number two, the dehyphenation actually led to India becoming a recognized nuclear weapon state and the strategic partnership with the US. Today, we are in a situation where, having invited Macron and Jaishankar having gone to Moscow, we are signaling to the West that we have a particularly close relationship with both Russia and with France. That is to do a balancing act. As to come back to your question about Pakistan, I would agree with you, Rishabh, that when chaos reaches a certain stage, and Dr. Kohli is an economist, so I'd like him to comment on what I'm saying. When chaos reaches a certain stage, the collapse is inevitable. And history, I'm a historian, not an economist, history has demonstrated this time and again. Pakistan today is a state in a state of collapse. The parts which held it together are collapsing. The Pakistani army no longer has the power to hold together those restless parts of Pakistan that want to secede or to merge with Afghanistan or to become independent. They are losing control over POK, and ultimately they could get reduced to the rump state of Punjab and a small periphery around it. The question here is, does it matter for us or not? In my perspective, Pakistan was created by the Brits and by the West, as Pathikrit rightly said, to be a constant irritant and checkmate to India. If it becomes a failed state and collapses into 3 or 4 states, what we need to worry about naturally is the fate of the nuclear weapon arsenal, which I'm told is in the safe hands of the Americans and not with the Pakistanis. That is what a popular lore now says, that's why the Americans are not worried. If it collapses into a rump state, our security problem is resolved, and we can then focus much more on getting back POK and in checkmating the Chinese.
Okay.
The sooner Pakistan collapses, in my perspective, the better it is for us. But we need to have vigilance at the army, at the border,
and
so that hordes of Pakistanis don't try to cross, bringing with them all kinds of terrorists with them who would then cause ferment.
Yeah, and if any Pakistanis watching, and they do watch this, yeah, we can only discuss it from our perspective because you have to figure it out. If you can't smell the smoke in the ruins, it's very disturbing. So let me get Dr. Kohli quickly into this. Dr. Kohli, so the next big question, in the current crisis, and economic crises do happen. India has had an economic crisis 35 years ago. We've seen in Venezuela, we've seen in Greece, heck, Japan and Germany were completely wrecked 70, 80 years ago, and you had a Marshall Plan to rebuild them. So who's going to come and fix this?
Well, as far as Pakistan is concerned, Rishabh, it is in an eternal economic crisis. And I agree with the ambassador, and I have also said a lot of times on your channel that the fate of Pakistan ultimately is, I appreciate you for a very wishful thinking that who's going to come and fix it. But as per my analysis, it's at a point of no return. I really don't think there is any quick fix solution or a long-term fix solution for Pakistan, because it has gone to a point where it cannot be repaired. Because if you see the total debt of Pakistan, if you see the way Pakistan is managed, the only fate of Pakistan is what Ambassador said, and I completely agree. And I've been saying the same thing. It is going to disintegrate into smaller provinces. The bigger question is who grabs which portion, whether that portion remains independent, although it's a more of a diplomatic and a military-related question. But I would love to comment something which is not my subject, that it will be interesting to watch who takes which province, whether the province survives on its own, whether there is a China factor to it, whether there's a Western factor to it, whether there's a Russian factor to it, whether something comes in the lap of India as well. I think we'll have to wait and see, but that is the ultimate fate. There is no.
So I'll try to take the question forward. Okay. So Joyita, the people who have to come and save you when something like this happens, okay, is the Bretton Woods institutions, IMF/World Bank. If not them, the Chinese and the Chinese aided and abetted institutions, they have funds also that come, or it's the Saudis and the Emiratis. You got 4 options, because what the Pakistanis were hoping is that they're going to discover a gold mine near Karachi. That didn't happen. Then they were hoping that they'll discover oil off the coast of Karachi. That didn't happen. So that isn't happening. Okay. So of the 4, who's going to come and save them?
I don't think anyone will be able to save Pakistan. What they will be doing is, right now what they are doing, trying to keep it propped up. Say for example, it is not letting, the West particular, the Bretton Woods institutions, as you said, obviously the US, it is not letting Pakistan go into a free fall like the way Sri Lanka went in. Think of the treatment that Sri Lanka got from
Why?
IMF.
What's in it for them? Other than irritating India, what's in it for them?
No, I don't think, frankly, that India thing is really that
But
important.
they don't need Pakistan for, supplying to Afghanistan anymore. So what's in it for the Americans?
No, they definitely need Pakistan. At least when you talk to Americans, that is what they say. You get the information from Afghanistan in terms of terrorism. Pakistan helps America to keep a foothold in this region, in the AFPAC region. It's still continuing.
But America's big enemy is supposed to be China, and they're all weather allies, whatever the terminology now is.
That you see, Pakistan is playing a very nice game also. And at the same time, this nuclear blackmail part of it, Pakistan is very adept at it. The Americans are seriously worried that if there is an implosion, the nuclear weapons will fall in the hands of these radicals. So that is one nuclear blackmail that Pakistan has been doing. And apart from that, when you are looking at, those are certain things that Pakistan has. For example, the US uses Pakistan whenever it needs it for its own, say for example, to trying and killing off those Al-Qaeda operatives that are operating in Afghanistan, supplying arms to Ukraine. So that way Pakistan is keeping America happy. And at the same time, if you look back at relations, US-Pakistan relations go back for decades. India happened much later, but the US-Pakistan, they have been going.
They go on for decades.
And we may not like it.
The question is anybody interested in a healthy, long-living patient, or just sort of keeping them on life support and torturing them forever? So particularly, there are only 4 players here. There is nobody internally in Pakistan who's going to come and revive the economy. You and I know it. The economy is being sunk to the ground by the Fauji Corporation and the army. You and I know it. So is the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Chinese, or the Americans, or all of them? Who's going to come and do it?
Rishabh, you have asked a very right question. Neither the Chinese nor the Americans want Pakistan to become, self-sufficient and resilient. They want to keep Pakistan afloat. That's the most important thing. As somebody also mentioned, I don't remember, that they need Pakistan for future. Because, see, let me tell you one thing. Across the universities and think tanks of United States, I'm telling you with a lot of confidence. One of the murmurs is this, that we have given a lot of carrots to India, but India is not relenting. And India will not relent. I support that India should not relent. But that is a concern that the Americans always had. Rishabh, please understand and think about it. The Americans always had a carrot and stick policy. Americans have given, as per their perspective, a lot of carrots to India. But India has continued with its independent foreign policy, which the Indians are 100% supportive of that. But the American perspective is that sometimes you have to again use the stick. And that's why I keep on saying the Pakistani factor, the deep state will keep it afloat. They'll not keep, you can call it life support. For them, Rishabh, my last point, it is very important for the deep state or the West to have the 4G alive. It doesn't matter to them what happens to the common man. The common man survives on the parallel economy, not on the formal economy. They would be smuggling.
So if you live in Pakistan and you are just an ordinary Pakistani, the bad news is that yes, this can go on forever. It's been going on for decades in North Korea, where a ruling establishment can keep the people in abject poverty and survive. So it is possible. Other wisdom also suggests that states can collapse, and when they collapse, sometimes good can happen, sometimes bad can happen. But I want you to think about it. I want you to think about the fact that in a very real sense, in the real sense, measurable sense, the economy of Bangladesh in the 71 war, which of course Pakistanis are convinced they won that war, so they voluntarily created Bangladesh. The economy of Bangladesh is bigger than that of West Pakistan. So I hope you find the gold and the oil. Wish you the best. I thank my guests. See you in a minute.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.